do today at Fair Maps Celebrate and Learn. This is really a special moment because starting in August, we get to vote in new maps that are Fair Maps. And we won this. All of us here, raise your hand if you were part of getting Fair Maps in Wisconsin. Woo! Look at us. I mean, this is people power. This was not a foregone conclusion, right? There were people that did not want us to win. Party bosses, special interests, big lobbying groups, and yet we won. It's all of us here winning. It's hundreds of people across Wisconsin fighting together. So this is really, really a big moment, and I'm so deeply grateful to be here with all of you. So today we're going to do two things. We're going to celebrate. I've got a chant for us, which we're going to practice. What do we want?
Fair Maps!
What do we have?
Fair Maps!
Woo! All right, and yeah, we're going to celebrate all the great work we've done to get to this place. Nick Ramos is going to walk us through how we got to where we are now and what's next. Anne Marie is going to help us learn. We're going to learn about the district maps we have now. I'm super pumped that many of you are already looking at them. And we'll end the day together by thinking about how we can help share this information with more people in our communities. And you'll be hearing from us until about 6:30. And then if there are any extra questions, you can find us. We'll end the program at 6:30. Now snacks, ask questions, hang out. The maps will stay here unless you want to talk to someone that you know, and they might have a map for you. And then, yeah, that'll be good. So I also want to invite, this was a really fun planning team. We had the League of Women Voters St. Croix Valley, the League of Women Voters Greater Chippewa Valley Votes, Wisconsin Public Education Network in row. So I want to invite everyone who helped plan this event to stand up. Woo! Yeah, it takes a village, and it was really, really fun planning with all these wonderful folks. So we're here to celebrate Fair Maps, and we've all worked on this for different reasons. One of the reasons that I worked on Fair Maps is because I'm really concerned about nitrates, PFAS, forever chemicals, carcinogens that end up in our water that make us sick, can lead to cancer, premature death, and this is really important to me because my mom has terminal cancer. She was exposed to carcinogens when she lived on a farm as a child, and it's very possible that her cancer now is linked to that. And so I'm really, really grateful for these new district maps because it means we have a level playing field, and all the things that we care deeply about now have new paths to victory at the state level. And I know that many of you have issues that you want to move forward on. Education, access to healthcare, we now have new paths to victory. It's also a huge victory for democracy. We know that when we come together as people, if we don't win, we become cynical or hopeless, but we just accomplished something amazing. And we're going to be able to replicate other wins together. So I really want to celebrate that. When we come together in Wisconsin and get organized, we can get things done. So that's what we're celebrating today. What do we want?
Fair Maps!
What do we have?
Fair Maps!
All right, I'm going to pass it over to Chris.
Hi everyone, my name is Chris Hambach-Boyle. I was part of the team that put this together. And I guess that's kind of what I'd like to share. I go back with these Fair Maps to when revenue caps got put in public schools and inflicted in 1994. And then Act 10. And then I ran for school board. And then I really did understand how do you keep kids safe when you don't have the same budget as the district down the road. So those inequities have really driven me to stay involved in Fair Maps because ultimately we all knew, right? We needed Fair Maps before we could fix anything. So I thank everybody in the room for what they've done to help that. And we should be so excited that going forward now, a little bit different than it used to be. So we're going to get to, I think for me, it's the relationships that were built along the way. We all learned how to connect the dots and how childcare is connected to public schools and how the environment is connected to healthcare. I think we're much more connected now, so something we could say. And we also work more by coalition, which you can see on the wall. I didn't do this as the Network for Public Schools. We did it with the League of Women Voters, who are public school champions. It's just an amazing coalition that has come about because of what our needs are. So we're going to let you do a little relationship building here today as well. So I put we're going to take the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes or so for you to find someone that you do not know, because I've done that a lot through this whole maps thing, you know, as we do stuff. And talk about where you live, okay? So hopefully it'll be a different Senate district, different Assembly district. How you have been involved in Fair Maps. You don't have to be up until now. There's lots of work from now until August and November. With new Fair Maps, what do you want to accomplish in Wisconsin and why it's important to you? So you can have your conversation around those questions if you want to. Otherwise, you may go down a different pathway that's probably just as good. So we're going to let people break. Find someone you do not know.
I'll introduce myself to you. I heard famously how great you are. I'm doing out by
spend a couple minutes to ask if people could share some of their takeaways or some of the conversation you had relative to how maybe it connected you, or that you found somebody else that felt the same way you do, or you came up with an idea, or you're reflecting on how you feel now as compared to before. And if you don't offer, I'm just going to kind of go around and see who might give me some ideas. Go
I'll
ahead, Anne-Marie.
start. Yeah, I think we connected over public education. That was kind of something that is a big concern in funding of it. So that was a commonality why we're interested in fair math.
Thank you. And I have a sign-up sheet for the network if you want it, and a few information. See me at the end. I had to do that, yeah. Anybody else want to share? Karen?
Well, we had a three-way conversation, and healthcare as well as education system were high on our list.
At the tail end of it, we talked about the biggest problem is money in politics.
What was that called way back when? What did we
Citizens
call it?
United
Thank you.
decision.
Yeah, remember that? Still there. Still impacting our life. Eleanor?
Women's rights, now they want to take away the contraceptives. Then what's next?
Don't you get up in the morning and you go, what?
Yeah.
Now what?
I
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
We have to have
Do you
a
think
new
the map?
legislature here to
Do you think-
protect our rights.
Do you think the maps will give us a deeper conversation and more accountability?
Yes.
Karen?
I would say that we talked about the need for the community and seeing beyond ourselves and realize that we need to get to people where they're at and to have the continual conversation, but the world isn't just about me. It's going to affect everyone else and our next generation. If we have hope for younger people, we have to give them something to hope on.
Very true. And I think that's the part that we learned through this whole thing about making those connections and why those are so important and how it all impacts the other.
Yeah, we have fairer maps now, but I think pertaining to fair maps, we still have to think about 2030 and getting some sort of procedure process that's fair to draw the next maps, independent commission, whatever.
Yeah.
That is part of what we're going to talk about today. Anybody else quick? One more?
Medicaid expansion.
Yep. So I hear lots of different things, which is going to connect us. And I always say we're all better together. So what people may have their logistically, they're plugged in somewhere, like I'm plugged into public schools, but I show up when that happened to our hospitals in Eau Claire, and I showed up on voting drop boxes, because all those things impact everybody. So let's kind of think that that's the glue that's going to hook us together, right? And Janelle's up next.
So I have the pleasure of introducing Nick Ramos, who's the Executive Director of Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, and I'll just give you a little story. So when I first started organizing in Western Wisconsin, almost everyone I talked to said, we are very upset about gerrymandering, gerrymandering, gerrymandering. I knew very little about gerrymandering, and I got to talk with Matt Rothschild for 2 hours. I got a complete lesson on what is happening in Wisconsin. And you all probably had a chance to hear Matt at some point speak. He's retired, and lucky us, Nick Ramos now has this job. Nick is Black and Puerto Rican, bringing a new face to Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. Nick has a degree in philosophy and is a lawyer, and worked for the governor of Milwaukee, Tom Barrett. And Mayor, thank you, and vote riders, and now he's the executive director at Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. So thanks for coming. Welcome, welcome.
I should have said a lot closer. It's a long walk.
Good to have you.
So just look at this thing real quick. I got 20 minutes to cook with you guys.
Yeah, we're ahead, so.
Yeah.
I don't know yet. Very cool. So, there's a lot of ways I like to start these things, but I don't know. Who has any Ohio connections in here? Raise your hand real quick. No Ohio connections? Just one? Ohio connections? Anybody got any Ohio connections?
I'm working remotely from Ohio.
Oh, yeah. How about Cleveland connections? No? Cleveland?
Been there.
Chris? The Guardians? All right. Well, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. That's why I wanted to know. So I just want to make sure it's not a hostile crowd. You know. Well, my name is Nick Ramos. I am the Executive Director of the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. I really appreciate being here and being able to share space with you. You could have been anywhere in the world than the Judicial Center in Dunn County, but you chose to be here. And I know if there's anybody that watches The Boys on Prime Video, they just released 4 episodes. You could have been at home watching that. So all that, I want to just get right into it. How many of you, show of hands, have you been in a relationship with somebody that was extremely opinionated, super hard-headed? You might have had the best arguments, you were right, but it didn't matter. Raise your hand. Hard-headed? Yeah, see? Okay, good. Well, I can just say that a lot of just being in this state and dealing with the gerrymandered legislature has been a lot like that. And I can tell you that in the very short amount of time that I have been at the helm as Executive Director of the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, it's just so fascinating to be in the Capitol and to watch some of the electeds and some of these lawmakers, the way that they carry it, the way that you try and talk to them, you try and have civil conversations, and it doesn't matter because they've drawn themselves into districts that virtually there's no way in hell that they are going to get themselves voted out because there is no path for an actual competitive race to happen. And it's not just by happenstance. I mean, we're talking, we joke all the time and talk about how some of these individuals are idiots and dumb, but these are individuals that surgically drew the maps to solidify their power, and they did it very successfully for years. And I mean, show of hands. I mean, how long? If you lived here for 10 years, raise your hand. Keep your hand up if you've lived here for 20 years. Keep it up if you've been here for 30 years. Keep it up if you've been here for 40 years. 50 years. 60 years? 70 years. Okay. 80 years? Holy cow. I feel like I'm like one of those DJs at the wedding, you know. How many people, how long have you been married, you know? Anyway, it's just fascinating to me that this is the first time since 1971 that we've had an actually signed map deal. Every other time that we've had maps get decided, it has literally gone to the courts. So think about that. Think about how much just vitriol we've had in the legislature that we can't even look at each other and be able to get a bill that can get to the governor to actually get signed. So I say all that to say this. We should be celebrating, but I want to take you through the last 6-7 months because it could have went in such a way where dear old Nick might have been bald giving you this presentation, and I was on the path. I was upping my hair medication to ensure that I wasn't going to go bald during this. And when I first got the job, I got thrown immediately into the Fair Maps fight because the Democracy Campaign, and for those, I've had you guys raise your hand a lot. I'm a big call and response kind of guy if you can't get the drift already. For those you, who knows who the Democracy Campaign is? Raise your hand. Next time I come here, I'm going to have all your hands up because the Democracy Campaign is going to be celebrating their 30th birthday next year. And the org, I know somebody said, money in politics, and I know, it's running rampant. And we all know it's a problem, but yet campaigns come around and then it becomes an arms race. Everybody's trying to outraise the other person and trying to win elections. We have been super involved in the Fair Maps fight. And the Fair Maps Coalition was one of the babies that we have been taking care of and have been orchestrating and facilitating and running for some time. And we were, this latest victory, it was years in the making, being able to educate folks on the ground what the hell gerrymandering even means. And when I first took the job, we got August, Janet Protasiewicz was sworn in. What happened right after that? Law Forward then filed their case in Supreme Court to be able to challenge the maps. And we ended up getting thrown right into it. The legislature then created their redistricting bill, and it was supposed to be the Iowa model. So last time I checked, guys, do we live in Iowa? No. I didn't think we lived in Iowa, but there's some people that thought that, Iowa, I heard Robin Voss, and he said it a bunch, that Iowa is the gold standard. We should be applying it to Wisconsin. I mean, if it's good for Iowa, it should be good for Wisconsin. So they created a bill, AB 415, and they thought it was so good that they didn't think the public needed to be there to say anything about it. So they voted on it in the assembly. And we didn't get a chance to say a single word in the assembly. And with that same gerrymandered legislature, they passed it. And so through the Democracy Campaign and through the Fair Maps Coalition, we created a public telling. And that public telling in Madison, we were at the Capitol, we created little cardboard cutouts of Robin Voss and Senator LeMahieu and some of these other bigwigs that wanted to, flex and say, hey, you guys don't need to be here. You guys elected us, we'll do it for you. So we made sure to rally folks through the Fair Maps Coalition, and we had over 100 people in there giving testimony to these cardboard dummies. And people were pissed because you know what? For years, we have been sitting outside the door just wanting to be heard. And what happened right after that public telling? For the first time in 13 years, we had a public hearing on a redistricting bill. Can you believe it? 13 years. The Senate immediately announced that they were going to have a hearing. Interesting. So we didn't get much time to then rally folks. We were like, all right, we see you. You want to play the game? Fine. People are that pissed off. We will make sure to get them there. So the Fair Maps Coalition started texting, calling, carrier pigeoning, everything under the sun to try and get as many people there on a Monday to be in the Capitol. And we gave them 5 hours worth of testimony. And somebody tell me, how many people can you guess were in support of this Iowa redistricting bill? Can somebody give me a guess? Oh man, you guys are smart. I wish I had guessed. You're right, 0. Yeah, nobody. Nobody. And so they let it sit there, die, and they were quiet. They let the court case at Law Forward push forward for a bit. And I gotta tell you, my birthday, I'm a Sagittarius. Any fellow Sagittariuses out there? All right, you rock star. Right before we getting ready to go, I was about to go home to Ohio and celebrate Christmas, and man, I got the best Christmas present. We ended up finding out that the Supreme Court looked at those maps and they finally said what everybody knew, that they were unconstitutional. Who would have thought? I know, right? I mean, I know it's common sense, guys. I mean, when you have literally Harvard and some of these other places comparing our maps to like the Democratic Republic of Congo, and some of these other places, it's like, it's just almost comical that we have to complain that like the maps are rigged, and then they want to get mad that we say they're rigged, but they're rigged, right? So can somebody tell me why the maps were called out for being unconstitutional? What was the one? And it's okay, like, yeah, contiguity, that's right. Contiguity. Does anybody know what the hell that means? I see somebody, yep. In the back?
Yes, the lines were drawn into little islands outside of districts. They were not continuous lines defining the district. They actually did complain about gerrymandered to political reasons.
That's right.
The lines weren't straight. They did that so it would stay a state issue and not go to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Look at you out there bowling. All right. You're going to be up here giving this presentation. Right. And I saw a young lady up here actually making this gesture. And that's absolutely right. So you both are right. Touching. Contiguity literally means touching. And you said it right. Islands. We had a ton of them. And, you know, the legislature's like, you know what, somebody challenge us and say something that these lines aren't touching. And they were. They weren't touching. So we got into a situation where, all right, the court's like, draw some maps then. Draw some maps that actually fit the Constitution. And we had several of those maps. And at one point, the legislature's like, you know what, we need to get in front of the Supreme Court because we're afraid the Supreme Court's going to do something that's going to be real disadvantageous to us. We don't want them to do something bad, so maybe we should get in front of them. So then they dropped their Iowa model. They're like, all right, which map, I mean, honestly, they were like, which map hurts us the least? So they're like, all right, the governor's map. The governor's map's pretty solid. You know, it's bad. It's real bad for us. But, you know, we've got great issues and we can do it. So, like, they worked on it. They wanted to, they went out in the public and said, hey, these maps, they're perfect, but the funny thing is that when they went and presented the maps, they went and changed the bill and changed it so it wasn't exactly the governor's maps. They changed it so that it would protect incumbents because the way that the governor's map would have been, it would have drew Republicans out of their district. And they were like, you know what, we want to protect them. And we said, hell no. You're going to let the court make that decision. And so then they go back to the drawing board, and then we finally get to a point where they're like, all right, you know what, the court's about to have to make a decision here, so let's just, you know what, the writing's on the wall here, we lost. Let's just let them have the governor's map. And they finally voted on it, and it finally got to the governor's desk. And of course, the governor's not going to sit there and say no to his own map. So we got to the fateful day of February 19th, and I know that date because, I mean, there's a lot happening. I mean, anybody know who Bob Spindella is by any chance? Yeah, he's not a great guy. Still a fake elector, still serves on the Wisconsin election mission. Different day, we'll talk about that. Anyways, so he signed those maps, and we're looking at them today, and I'm so just honored that you guys get to look at them at your tables. And you know, big shout out to the gentleman that said that, like, you know, we need to be looking to the long-term solution, the long-term fix, because this is a huge victory that we all should be patting ourselves on the back for, because it did not happen overnight. And it took a mix of litigation, but it took the grassroots people not becoming jaded, not giving up, wanting to make sure that your voices got heard and you got a seat at the table. Because there's a lot of places where there's people that, you know what, they're tired, and they're tired of just trying. And at this point, we have become a model for other states to see that there's a path to this, even when you feel like you have no voice at the end of the day. And these maps, you know, I said the little anecdote about, you know, the majority looking at them and being like, oh, you know, let's pick the map that hurts us the least. I'm going to tell you why these maps are good. These maps are good because they really are fair. And they're fair because look at how many races we actually have opponent on the other side running, on the assembly side, actually running. I mean, at first there was going to be a candidate in every single district running in this fall. When has that happened in Wisconsin? People were giving up before it even started because of the gerrymandering that we had here. And now you actually see people that are like, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot because there's actually a chance. And don't you want people to actually be out there giving it a shot and trying to throw their hat in the ring instead of being like, you know what, the game's already rigged, so why would I even bother? And so it's a great first stepping stone for us to be able to look at a future, but you have to be willing to take advantage of this opportunity. Because if you're going to take a shot at the king, you best not miss. And all those public policy issues that have sat on the shelf and have died for years, healthcare. You're talking about, somebody said women's rights. We're thinking about, I mean, hell, I was here when former Governor Walker was looking at that high-speed train that literally went, skiing. I mean, there are so many things. PFAS in our water. There are so many things that this legislature has chosen to literally gavel in and gavel out because they don't have to answer anybody. And now, after this election, if we actually come out, show up, show out, vote, that post this, they will not have that luxury anymore. That they will actually be held accountable. That like they cannot afford to not listen to you. And yeah, keep it up. You're more powerful than you even know. Seriously, they treated you like crap, and I mean it. I walk in there and they laugh, and I'm in there like, you know what? Your day's coming. I'm telling you right now. You forgot that you are a public servant. What is the first part of that? Public. And guess what? You're supposed to be serving these people. And yet they get cozy with all these big money donors that are supposed to be trying to guide them. And I'm telling you right now, that day is over. And we've got to be looking at not only that, but the constitutional amendments. So again, that's another thing we need to be talking about. A final death grab, that's a final power grab that they're trying to push because they see the writing's on the wall, the lights are on, the party's over. Like, you have to understand that at the end of the day, no party should be given this type of power. They should not be allowed to write themselves in because they will abuse it. And I just sit here and I look at you guys and I tell you right now, I'm more inspired than ever to run through brick walls because I know that after years of literally just being laughed at by some of these power players, they know they don't get to do this anymore to us. They know that if they choose to try and play these partisan gerrymandering tricks, that they've got hell to come for. And I look around you guys and I just tell you, like, never forget that, like, at the end of the day, if you keep at it the way that you have, there is no stopping us at the end of the day. And so, this is where it really becomes really important for all of us to just know that when we're over here thinking about the tactics leading up until August and leading up until November and educating people about these districts, educating them about the implications, telling them why you need to vote this fall. You gotta make sure that we get people that are fair maps candidates that are going to make sure that when they're in there, they don't forget. Because we need to make sure we get that piece of legislation that will get us a nonpartisan redistricting process. That will get us to a point where they don't get to play these games, where they get to just vote and then not have us there. And we're gonna push them. We are going to push them to get us a grassroots-led piece of legislation that will eventually get enshrined to our Constitution so we never have to do this again. Because I don't want to go bald. I will go to Turkey and get a hair transplant before I let them let me get bald. So at the end of the day, like, I just want to give you guys all the love, all the congrats, because I mean, I had to get thrown into it in the middle of it, but like, we did a ton of rallies, and we're going to keep going. And we're going to make sure that we do community events to educate people far and wide, so they know. And those brochures that you see, we're going to be giving out, and we've been giving out tens of thousands of them. We're going to keep going. There are so many issues that can be unlocked, and we can be looking at a Wisconsin that actually works for us. Instead of a legislature that thinks that they can just pick what they want, we can start picking our future. So I'll be here all night. I love and appreciate you guys so much for just giving a damn about this, and keep fighting, because this is where it really gets fun. After this election, we really get to choose our destiny. So I appreciate you guys.
All right. Thank you, Nick. It's so great to have you here with us. shortly after I had a conversation with Matt Rothschild back in the day of my Fair Maps journey, shortly after that, I met Anne Marie McClellan, who's from Menominee, our very own local Fair Maps champion. At the time, Anne Marie McClellan was the co-director of the League of Women Voter Greater Chippewa Valley with Ellen Oakes, and Anne Marie dove right in, and it was really, really fun. Grow and the leagues, also the League of Women Voters in St. Croix Valley, and all of us collaborated, put on a lot of really fun Mappy Hour events, drew lots of maps, did lots of things together. It was really, really wonderful. And every step of the way, Anne Marie has been a leader in the Fair Maps fight. So when Governor Evers had the People's Map Commission, Anne Marie put her hat in the ring and became the commissioner for the 3rd Congressional District and represented us all very, very well. And then this last Supreme Court case, the case that La Ford brought to the Wisconsin Supreme Court, which was what brought us the maps that we have now, Anne Marie was also a plaintiff. So we are really, really lucky to get to hear next from Anne Marie, who's going to walk us through what we need to know about these new district maps for us in western Wisconsin. Welcome, Anne Marie.
You have some expertise in this area, but don't let her fool you. So, thank you, and thank you all for being part of Fair Maps. And I guess, on the personal note that Janelle brought up, I mean, some of you told me you should run for the Fair Maps Commission and put your name in the hat. And so it was people in this room that kind of encouraged me, and so I did it. And can you hear me okay? Should I talk into this? I don't even know if the mic is it on?
You can just turn the switch.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, I don't have a super loud voice. So anyway, thank you for that, and it's been an honor, and I'm kind of more of a nerd and wanting to look at details. I'm a very detail-oriented person, so this kind of project of Fair Maps fits my personality very well. So what I'm going to do is kind of walk us through a tour of the maps and try to make it not too dry, but let me just get this started here. And I guess, one thing before I get going a little bit is, why are we involved in Fair Maps? Everybody has their reason, and I think for me, I know Nick said what sun sign he was, a Sagittarius. I'll just lay it out there. I'm a Libra. Fairness has always really been important to me, and I think that's one of the things that made me so angry about gerrymandering. It was like the system is set up to make one party win, and it just made me crazy to know that a system is like that, and we're just going to live with it. No, I think that we need to fight it, and everybody needs a fair chance of success. And so it's the fairness issue that really keeps me going in this fight. So, and we've got better maps, but as we said, we've got more work to do. And why is this PowerPoint not coming up? Okay, is that working now? So we're all here as part of the Fair Maps Coalition, and these are all the organizations, and it's a delight to bring everyone together because there's power in all of us when we all get together. And the Fair Maps Coalition, just so you know, that I think we all believe in this mission that, basically we're looking for fair representation, and we believe that there should be an independent and nonpartisan redistricting process. The process is really important so that we have a fair and accountable governance, basically, and that everyone can vote. So that's kind of our base, I think, that connects all of us. And so our agenda, the way we publicize this, is we wanted to talk about the new maps. They're called the Act 94 maps, to be precise, because there's so many versions of maps all over the place when you look at them. You do want to look at the Act 94. We want to make sure that you're able to know why and who created them and what's good about our new districts, how to explore your district, And just a little what we think, how we think these new maps will affect the 2024 elections. Nick's talked a little bit about that already. Help to prepare you to talk to voters about new maps, because I think how many people here are involved in voter registration activities in some sense? Yeah, a goodly half, more than half. So I think everyone's worried about the elections that are coming up, especially in the fall. And everyone said that, you know, Wisconsin voting things were rigged and we don't have fair elections, and it's easy to create problems in our elective process, our voting process. And I think the change in the maps is kind of like a target for people, especially outside of Wisconsin, to say, you know, that the maps were rigged, and that's why somebody might have won or lost the election. And I think we all need to be confident in knowing that these are not rigged maps, that these maps are fair, they're better than they ever were, and that we all feel comfortable about that. And then we just want to talk about, you know, how we can help and plans for the future. So, and I also really want to shout out to Nick for coming here to talk to us. He's fundamental in getting these new Act 94 maps, you know, leading the coalition in the Wisconsin democracy. So anyway, welcome to Menominee, and thank you for being here. And thank you all for being here too, because I know it's it's in the middle of your dinner hour. It's a super busy week for tons of people. But I think all of us kind of remember, like the county maps, you know, when everyone was going out and getting those resolutions years ago and getting them signed county by county and sometimes within a city. And I think many, many of us were part of that, and it did make a difference. It's another story, but apparently we can't have that same sort of resolution tactic anymore to make our voices heard, but I think it worked. And thank you all for participating in that. And then also, big shout out to Law Forward for taking that Clark versus the Wisconsin Elections Commission to file suit on the non-continuity of the fair maps. So shout out there. And then finally, our picture of success, that the new maps were signed by the governor. And the governor did a tour around after he signed it that same day. He went from a number of cities. He went to Hudson, and it was really a fun, really heart-moving day that we were there. We went to Hop and Barrel, we like bars. So I think, Janelle, we end up in happy hours drinking beer. So anyway, it was at the Hop and Barrel. I know Ellen and I drove over there, and Irene, you were there, and probably other people in that room, and we saw the governor came in, and he gave a little speech, and I looked over at Janelle, and she's got these little tears welling up in her eyes, and I started, you know, welling up, and it was just like a super humbling, proud moment that you actually get to see as a citizen that the work that you did paid off. You know, it is really rare, and it's encouraging, I think, to all of us that, you know, we just keep pushing on, and we can make our voices heard even when they try to squelch us. So that was a wonderful day. So in summary, who did create these new Act 94 maps? Well, the Supreme Court took the 22 maps that came in after our redistricting cycle, right? 2020 happened, we got the new district maps. And then with this latest case, they were described as unconstitutional. So then the governor submitted new district maps in response to this Wisconsin Supreme Court request. And the governor, along with 6 other people, submitted their versions of the maps for consideration by the Supreme Court. And after a lot of long drama that we're not going to talk about, but tons of drama, it turned out that the legislators then, as Nick said, took the governor's maps because they thought the least harmful for them, and got them approved under Senate Bill 488, and then they were signed into law in February of 2024 under the Wisconsin Act 94. So these maps have been reviewed by the Supreme Court. the assembly people, the senators, and the governor, and everybody says, okay, they're good. So everyone's had a chance to have their say about it. What's good about these new districts? Well, number one, they meet the constitutional criteria to be contiguous, compact, and population balanced. They are definitely more competitive, which means there's less political bias. There's tons of data. If you go and even look at that Supreme Court case, there's a lot of information that shows how much more balanced that these maps are. And personally, I'm so happy that they're not restricted by this least change approach that the legislature adopted and the Supreme Court in 2020 when we were trying to fight those maps. That makes me angry to this day. That's why I included it here. It's like, ugh. So what about the maps? When are they in effect? They're in effect right now, and they're in effect for the fall 2024 elections. And here's some very important election dates. We have some election workers here that are very familiar with them. The June 3rd was the last day for all the candidates to file their nomination papers, so we now know who's running in what district. You can always look that up on the Wisconsin Election Commission page right now if you want. They will be posted on other websites as in the near future, because the absentee ballots have to be sent out on the 27th. But anyway, the fall primary election is August 13th. That's a big day, big election. And then, of course, the fall election is November 5th. And I know everyone in this room will be out and dragging people with them to the polls. So for the fall 2024 elections, who's up? So every single assembly seat is up for election, and that's as usual, every 2 years. All the even Senate district seats are up for election, which is as usual. The odd Senate district senators remain as is, so they will not be up for re-election. So they'll continue in their seats that they are now and then be up in a couple of years. How will the new maps affect the elections? Well, 44 assembly and senators are going to be running in new districts. So these are guys that 38% of the elected officials are going to be moved from one district to another. 66 members of the Assembly and Senate won't run again in their own district, so they got moved. And some of those actually decided not to run again. There's a number of them that just said that they've had enough. So that's like a 57% turnover. And it's, not surprisingly, 41 Republicans and 20 Democrats. We had a lot more Republicans in the Senate and in the House anyway, so that number is not too surprising. The big thing is we're going to have a lot of choices because the competitive races, 83% of the races are competitive, which is very different than what we've seen in the past. And this does include our primaries. So Republicans running against Republicans in the primary, and Dems versus Dems in those primaries in the fall or in the August election. So in 12 of the 16 Senate districts that are up and 84 of the 99 Assembly districts, we're going to have choices. Republicans are running in almost all the Senate districts and 84 Assembly, and Dems, and this is a big change, are running in every Senate district and in all but 2 Assembly districts. So I think that they feel like they've got a choice now, you know, it isn't rigged, so let's take our chances. So there's, as we see, a lot of opportunity for real change. So the primary election is August 13th. There's going to be at least 26 primaries in both the Assembly and Senate this August. So there's a lot of stuff to go out there. A lot of people should go out there and vote, and the primaries are going to be much more significant than they have in recent times. And also, very importantly, the constitutional amendments will be on the August ballot, not the fall, so you want to get out there and vote. We're not going to talk about them in details, but I will say that every group that is sponsoring this talk today all recommend vote no. And there's a lot of information that you can go out and look on any of our websites and get more details about that. So how about our congressional districts? Are they changed? No, they're the same. There's been no change at all in our congressional districts. And most of all of us are in CD3. This kind of, I'm not sure if that point is working, that kind of chartreusey yellow color, and then the light green is District 7, Congressional District 7. So our two congressional districts really take up, as far as area, half of our state. And we can see that Congressional District 3 is weird. It kind of loops around so that it takes a lot of the more conservative rural areas and lumps them together in 7. And the college towns, like going up to Stevens Point, Eau Claire, and La Crosse, are all in 3.
Anne Marie, could you comment on why the congressional districts were not changed?
They weren't part of the lawsuit because they didn't fit that non-continuity problem that was the basis of the lawsuit. So I think that might have been one of the reasons. But Nick?
So the Law 4 suit was strictly state maps. The Elias Law Group filed a case in front of the Supreme Court that would have focused specifically federal congressional districts. The Supreme Court chose not to take it, at least not. And we can definitely talk about it offline, because there's a lot to chat about that. But this one, as far as just the maps that you see on the tables and the maps that we're going to discuss for control, strictly state, legislature, Senate, Assembly, but if we can really talk about federal congressional inspection, are missed.
So, but the congressional seats will be up for election, this fall, so just to throw that in there. But the maps that actually got changed then are our Senate districts and our Assembly. So in our area, we cover Senate districts 10, which is that kind of yellowy thing. Yeah, we had a corner.
Here, I'll point
down
it
along
out.
this. Oh, thank you.
I can point it.
Yeah, she said you'd be my assistant. Yes. And up at the top of the purple one is the 23 or 25?
25.
25. 31 is down where we are right now. And 23, I think, is down
Up here. The big.
over there. So that covers the area that we're in, and as we know that within each Senate district, there's 3 assembly districts that are nested within there. So that's the area we're kind of focusing on today. And so you might say, well, okay, now how am I going to explore my new districts? Well, we're going to look at the maps that are in the Wisconsin Legislative Technology Bureau. You can download them. These printouts that we have are downloaded from them. There's PDFs. You can just download them, and we just took them to the printer and had them printed as poster size, so they're easy to find. So that's one way to look at it, and another way to look at it is under Dave's redistricting.org. It's maybe a little bit harder to work your way through Dave's if you haven't seen it before. There's so many options that you can get lost in them. But what I do like about Dave's, which will work right here, is it's easy to pull up what our assembly districts look like within counties. And I know that that was one of the things we used to look at when we were evaluating maps, is how many districts are in an individual county. And in all fairness, I'm looking at Dunn County, right? Can you see Dunn County has 4 different blocks in there, right? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're in 4 different assembly districts. And that was one of the criticisms that we had back in 2020 about our county, and here we are again. So no map is perfect. I'll say that, that these are great maps. They're much improved because of the partisan bias is gone. But maybe our county supervisors are going to say, well, I'm back to the same problem where if I want something done, I'm going to have to talk to 4 different assembly members to try to reach out to them. So this is just, I think, what we have to live with. I mean, and this is a good illustration, but I don't think it discounts the maps one bit, and we'll see, look at them in more detail. But anyway, this is what I like about Dave's redistricting, is you can just pull up and look at it in different ways. Okay, so here we are in Senate District 10. That was in Menominee, where we used to be in Senate District 10. We're not now. But just to take a look at it, maybe. Okay, this little point here is River Falls, just so you can orient yourself. And this is the old maps in 2022. This is the new one. This was 10. Up north, you can see in St. Croix. And down along the Mississippi River was 31. And over here, now 10 got moved down this way, and 25 kind of got pulled and pushed, and 31 got pulled away from the Mississippi River and moved into the Eau Claire area. So that's kind of a big change. And one of the things, if you study the maps and look at them, the Chippewa Valley region, we really, our lines switched a lot more than a lot of places in Wisconsin. And I think one of the reasons is that we're not really super population dense, right? So if you have a real dense population like Milwaukee, you can change the lines just a little bit, and you've got so much population around you, you don't need to change the lines a lot to get people, they don't get shifted into new districts and Senate districts like the way we do in our less populated areas. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing what we're seeing. So in Senate District 10, now, that's the old one up at the top, now includes part of Senate Districts 31 and 25. It's absorbed into it. So what does that mean? Well, the Senate District 10 Senator Rob Stachels, he stays in 10, but the people he represents are a little different because the lines have moved. That Jeff Smith was in Senate District 31 that used to go all the way down to the Mississippi River, and those were people he represented. Now that's kind of switched, right? So his constituents are a little different, and the same goes for Romaine Quinn. His constituents are different. So it changes for us as voters who our representatives are, but it's changing for them too, who they should listen to. So it's really a lot of balls in the air, right? When you really think of it. So here we are in Menominee, and so you can see, here's Menominee, this is our lake, Lake Manilman here, right there, to orient you. This is our old district, 29. You can see how there's a lot of cuts and stuff like that there. And in our new assembly district, it's much cleaner. We're in 92, so we're over here. We used to go out and be affiliated more with people to the west. Now we're affiliated to the east, right? So we cut across. This is Eau Claire and up to Chippewa Falls, so more like Altoona north of Eau Claire. So that's a big switch. That's kind of a bold redistricting move, I think. But I think to me it makes some sense because we have a lot of economic relationships with people in Chippewa Falls, the places we go to visit, the restaurants we go to, the people we visit, the things we like to do outdoors, which a lot of people in Wisconsin do. I mean, we go back and forth along that north or east west route a lot. So to me, that does make sense that we're grouped with our eastern colleagues. So these are the maps you see with Wisconsin State Legislature website when you go there. You're also going to see this thing that is kind of confusing. In that key up there at the top, you have a choice. You can look at 2024 maps or 2022 maps. You can look at congressional districts. You can put check marks on everything, and it's going to overlay all the lines, and it's going to like make you crazy. You can't see a thing if you do that. I've tried. So the legends are very important to look at if you're on this website. The other thing is it's going to tell you all this information about your legislature, which can be very confusing. But it's not. I don't think it's meant to confuse us. I think it's meant to educate us. So it's going to show the legislators who represented us in the 22 maps. So, and because I have 2022 clip too, so that's going to affect what's showing as far as the representatives. So we know Rob Staff-Schultz was Senate District 10, and Clint Moses represented us in 29, District 29. Now, today, as of today, or once those maps were signed in February, we switched, and then our state senator became Jeff Smith, because we're in 31 now. And our state, or our representative for District 92 is Trey Poncho, which, yes, and I know nothing about him. So I know about Clint, but I don't know anything about this guy. But so he's our representative at the moment. And then it also tells you the legislators who reside in your district right now. So Senator Jesse James and Jeff Smith both live in our district, so you can see that that's going to be a problem for them when they try to run, right, in the upcoming 2 years. And then Clint Moses still lives in the district right now where we're not. Now, he was on 29, but now he still lives in the new 92, right? So he can still represent us. So what does that mean then for guys that are running for office? That Clint Moses then had to file non-candidacy papers for 29. Yeah, I thought as I was looking at it backwards. Yeah, for 29, because he can't run for 29, doesn't live there anymore. And so then he collects the signatures, and then he filed to run in District 92, which is fine, but he's no longer an incumbent any longer. So he kind of loses that edge when people go to the polling booth, right? Doesn't it normally tell you who the incumbent is? And so this is an illustration of it, but it's not unique. This has happened to a lot of incumbents. So that's just another way this is going to affect our election. Here's River Falls. In the old, they were the Senate District 31, Assembly 93. Now they're in 10, and District Assembly 30. So you used to have Jeff Smith, now you've got Rob Staff-Schultz, and he'll be running again so you'll have a chance to elect him or not. And then the Zimmerman, the representative who's representing you right now, will also have a chance to run in the new District 30. And then Eau Claire, the big thing to point out here, this is one of those overlay maps. So this is clicked on 22 and 24. The purple, all this stuff shows you what the district looked like before. And Eau Claire was one of those regions that they pulled up in specifically in the lawsuit about non-contiguous areas because there were a lot in the previous maps. So you can see how kind of chopped up and crazy it was. So now under the new maps, they just divided the assembly district right down the river, and it's much cleaner. What it does is Jody Emerson used to have this whole district, and now she's just on the west side, and the east side it will have somebody else. So now how to go and find your new legislative district. We'll have a chance to practice this if you want. You can, you go to this website or use the QR code. And what I wanted to show you, these guys, these brochures, they have a couple of QR codes in them. And one of them, right here, will take you directly to this website. And it's not going to take you to any particular district, but it will take you to where you can go and start searching for your district. So this is an easy way to get there. And then you just put in your address at the top here, and then it's going to scroll down and find your district for you. And in this case, then it pulled up the district and who the representatives were for this address. And then just, as we said, just pay attention to the legend, because here it's clicked. They're not going to see what their district lines are today. They're going to see what they used to be, because 2022 was there. Okay. So that's it, kind of like the maps. It's a lot of details, and you can delve into it. We have pictures here that you can go and look, at the current districts and where you are. But when you go and you're talking to people about these new maps, I think, again, we have to remember to say that the old maps were unconstitutional since they had many non-contiguous districts, so that problem has been solved. The new maps make races more competitive, so I think our representatives might be more apt to listen to us. They've been approved by state assembly and the Senate and the governor. And if you're in this area, your lines have probably changed. You can go through this whole rigmarole and show them exactly how they changed. Or I was talking to a friend that works in voter services. She said, no, just tell them to go to myvote.wisconsin.gov, and just like you always do, it'll show you who your candidates are. So that's the simple way to explain it, and people can be confident on who their candidates are. But as people that are concerned about fair maps, and you want to be able to understand a little bit about the redistricting, so we can understand it all. And then just on this brochure as well, there's a second QR code here, and this is going to take you to a link of a whole lot of really good websites that are references to fair maps. But if you scroll down to the bottom, it'll take you to the My Vote Wisconsin. So that's another handy way if you're talking to people. Just go there and scroll down and go to My Vote. Let's practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Emery.
Oh, yeah, and I guess before, do we have time for a quick question? If anyone has a question for Nick or me?
Yes.
No? Okay.
Can you flip to the next slide? Thank you. Awesome. So a lot of you got here early, so you've already been able to explore your map a little bit, so that's awesome. If you don't have your map to look at, there are some hanging on the back wall, and there are probably some more on the chairs or on the floor around there. So what we want to do now is just take a little bit of time, and we're thinking in groups of 3, but you can just do it with whoever's at your table if you'd like. And the goal is on your phone, or if you have a tablet or a laptop, let's go to this website and just practice it once or twice so that you can get comfortable with it, and then when you're telling your friends about this or other people, you'll feel a little bit more comfortable on the website. So we go to legis.wisconsin.gov, and then we click on Find My Map.
Yeah, and type in your
Find My
address.
Map, yeah, and then type in your address. So we'll do that in a few minutes together, and I'll come around, and we'll all come around and help you out if you're having trouble.
And if you need internet, I think it's supposed to be Dunn public. It should require no password to get onto the internet.
Yeah.
I understand.
So we'll all practice looking at our maps online, looking at the physical maps we have here. And the last question we have for you is really, now you've heard all about the new maps, the new district, you've become familiar with them. We want to share this information with our networks in our communities. We want to inform people that we now have fair maps and that voting in August and November is a really great opportunity to elect the people that we want to be able to get the long-term process for redistricting that's fair. So once you're done kind of figuring out the map situation, I encourage you to chat with the people at your desk, at your table, and think about how are you going to bring this information to your